Tesla stopped selling right-hand drive. Tariff increase for Chinese cars into Europe. Vietnam rare earths. EV sales on the up in Germany. AA Training Academy. EU Data Act. Tesla taking sales from old school dealers. Hello, my name's Paul Callan and welcome to this week's MotorZen News. Just a couple of dates. There's a truck show on in Claremorris on the 3rd of June. Connacht Truck Show, operators, trade stands, vintage display, and money been raised for Roscommon Hospice. Automotive is also coming up now as well on the 6th, 7th and 8th of June. That's in the NEC in Birmingham. That's probably the biggest aftermarket trade show that will take place in Europe this year, because there's no show on in Germany and there's no show on in Italy. So in terms of an aftermarket trade show, this is the big one. I always say to anybody from Ireland who's thinking of going to that show, it is so easy. It is a Ryanair flight into Birmingham. There's a small train journey, a Metrolink train journey from the airport to the NEC centre. So effectively it almost feels like you don't leave the airport just to go to that event in the NEC. So it's really easy. So just if you wanted to go to it, just get a Ryanair flight into Birmingham and you're there effectively. Tesla is going to stop selling right-hand drive Model S's and Model X's. This has just been announced. Trying to get some more information. They're saying they're going to stop selling right-hand drive S's and X's into Ireland and the UK. What they're saying is you can still buy, if you so wish, a left-hand drive model. So what they're saying is if people who have given a deposit for a Model S or a Model X can still buy a car, but it will be a left-hand drive car. I tried to read a couple of articles and some releases on this. It appears to be that they're going to run a customer relations day in the UK where they're going to allow customers to experience the left-hand drive car to see if they still want to go ahead with their purchase. If not, they're going to give people back their deposits. Now, I don't know whether this is Elon Musk is attempting to convert right-hand drive countries to left-hand drive because he's done some remarkable things in the last number of years, or is it simply just a production issue? If you look at the numbers, in Ireland last year we purchased 675 Teslas. There was 75 Model S's and 75 Model X's, and there was no Model S's. So it's a very, very small volume product. So maybe that's the reason they're doing this. The Model 3 and the Model Y are the big sellers. Europe's car manufacturers are starting to make noise about Chinese imports, and we kind of spoke about this. Probably would come on the horizon pretty soon. There's calls from some of the manufacturers to raise the tariffs on Chinese cars coming into the EU. CEO of Peugeot, Linda Jackson, says this poses the biggest threat to EU car makers. She goes on to say because they are good vehicles, priced competitively. Allianz have done a study in Europe and saying it could cost EU manufacturers 7.7 billion in profits a year. Carlos Travis, who's the CEO of Stellantis, says EU's current tariff on Chinese vehicles is 10%. It says China puts a tariff of 15 to 25% on European cars going into China. So that seems to be where the call is, to try and raise the tariff to that amount. So it looks like the value that we're only beginning to see in Chinese cars, they'll become a little bit more expensive based on the fact that European manufacturers are going to push for tariff to be raised. Staying with China, and roughly with the same story, is Chinese car exports are causing shortage of capacity in cargo ships. Mazda CX-90, they're struggling to get shipping capacity to ship their car from Japan to China because all the capacity has been used up with cars leaving China. And to look at those numbers, last year China exported 3 million cars. They're on target to export 4 million cars this year. And to put that in perspective, pre-COVID, the total cars made by Volkswagen in Germany were 4.7 million. So it looks like the amount of German product coming into the rest of the world is going to exceed what Volkswagen produce in Germany. So it goes to show how really in a very short space of time the Chinese manufacturers are really starting to get traction. Vietnam, not a name that you would associate with the automotive industry, but with the rest of the world trying to find different supplies for rare earths other than China, Vietnam starting to appear to be a source. 2021 there was 400 tons of rare earth produced or mined in Vietnam. Last year it was 4,300 tons, and put that in contrast, China produced 210,000 tons of rare earth. But it is thought that Vietnam actually possesses the second largest reserve of rare earths in the world. So every couple of weeks we're finding that there's countries starting to appear to have this material. So as the demand increases, so too it appears the volumes of rare earth available starts to increase. But a lot of the driver for this is non-Chinese manufacturers trying to source materials outside of China. EV sales are on the up in the home of the car in Europe. Yeah, German EV sales were up by 34% in April, 14.7% year-on-year increase. At this stage, there's 30,000 battery electric vehicles in Germany. Number one is Volkswagen with approximately 5,000. Number two is Tesla with 2,400. Number three is Mercedes-Benz with 2,320. Then Audi 1,875. Then BMW 1,823. PHEVs on the way down, 45% decline. And there's only, with all brands, there's only 12,000 PHEVs. So again, that transition seems to have been made where PHEV or hybrid seem to be a halfway house. If you look at the German market now, consumers seem confident enough to commit to buying a full electric vehicle, and that's in a big way has been helped by Volkswagen, who have really committed to this and got behind it with all their model ranges. And obviously they're transitioning all their customers out of ICE into EV, and that seems to be happening quite seamlessly now for them. AA Academy. The AA here in Ireland are starting up a training academy in conjunction with a company called Automotive Training. It's a UK company that's coming in to assist the AA here. And the reasoning behind this is a skill defect. AA are struggling, as in everybody in our industry is struggling for people, for staff, for trained technicians. AA are saying that there's something in the region of 50 roles that they could fill if they could get the people with sufficient skills to fill them. This training is going to be rolled out with apprentices and with AA patrol assistants. A whole upskilling model for the existing AA patrol assistants, and there's going to be an IMI level 1 to 4 EV hybrid training. There's going to be a level 1 in hydrogen training. And a really interesting statement, and I think, because every day I meet people and they keep asking, do you know where there's a mechanic? Do you know where I can get a mechanic? And I'm saying, I won't, there isn't going to be one. And what the Chief Operating Officer of AA has come out and said, Stephen Benson has come out and said, there's no point in us lamenting the lack of technicians without us setting about to do something about it. And I think that's a really interesting statement. I think really companies, organisations, I don't see the state, I don't see the apprentice model in Ireland solving the skill shortage. There's no dynamism there, there's no energy there, there's no get up and go there, there's nobody going out talking to schools, encouraging people, young people to look at the automotive industry as a career path. It doesn't exist on the radar. Even in 2019, when the skills competition was on in RDS, at that stage you could see how active the construction industry trades were, and you're not seeing that same joined up thinking coming from the automotive sector. So looking at this, AA have obviously looked at this and said, look, nobody else is going to do anything about this, so we're going to have to do something about it. So that's going to be interesting to watch, because if they're on track with this, they're going to solve their skill shortage, and that's going to give them an enormous advantage out there in the marketplace. European Data Act. This is an act for data in general, but we're focusing on the components of it relevant to the car, and again relevant to the connected car, because that's the next big thing that's coming down the track. Based on what's happened this week in Europe, they're a step closer to stricter controls of data. The Data Act has been cleared with the European Consultation Committee, so it's gone on to the next stage to be written into legislation in Europe. And yeah, there's lots of stuff in this, but when you look at the connected car, they're saying that there's been an exponential increase on the amount of data that's coming off a car now. The key question here is who owns the data? And up to now, it seemed to be, well, the car's connected to the manufacturer's getting the data. That's pretty much all there is to it. Well, what seems to be in this document is that this data, the rights of this data, belongs to the user of the product. They choose. So it looks like it's going in the right direction, because the big fear about this has always been that the manufacturer has got access to all this data about the vehicle, about issues with the vehicle, about fault codes that's coming up on the vehicle, and they're directing the vehicle then into their dealer network. Early stages on this now, but it looks like maybe that will be not the case, that the consumer will decide where that data goes. He may decide it goes to the manufacturer, but it looks like the user of the product will decide where it goes. More things to watch out for on that, more things to study, but in general it looks like it's going in the right direction. Interesting story from California. Car dealers in California are losing $700,000 of profit per year as a result of Tesla, Lucid and Rivian selling direct to their customers. Again, we know it so well from the Tesla model. Tesla don't need dealers, don't have dealerships, don't have traditional dealer networks. They're selling direct to the customer, and by all accounts they seem to be doing it pretty successfully in America and in Europe and in Ireland. California has 1,300 dealers, and they're crying about the lack of business, that the business they're losing as a result of Tesla being able to sell direct. Remember that Tesla can only sell direct to customers in America in 35 states. It's illegal for them to sell direct to customers in the remaining states. They have to go through a dealer network. Now, as far as I can work out, they're refusing to do that. So they are still managing to get into those states, but by the customer purchasing the car in another state. But they're only actually able to sell direct in 35 states. So while in early days this looked like it might not be successful, it's really now proving that it is successful. And this is also to do with the move within dealers in Europe, manufacturers in Europe, to introduce the agency model, where they are no longer using or don't need to use their dealers, that they are also selling direct to the customers. So again, in loads of aspects, Tesla has really shaken up the automotive industry in ways that someone said it couldn't be done, but they've come in and they've rocked the boat in so many ways, and this is one way that's now appearing to be in and working and kind of not going away. I'm just giving you a reminder on these dates, because some people that watch the shows said that sometimes when I give dates and stuff, I gave them too close to the due date. So Saturday the 3rd of June, there's a really good truck show on in Connacht, Claremorra Showgrounds. Operators, trade stands, vintage display, and the money raised on that's going to the Roscommon Hospice. And Automechanica, probably the biggest aftermarket trade show that will take place in Europe this year, is in Birmingham in the NEC on the 6th and 7th, 8th of June. And again, fly straight into Birmingham and just get the small shuttle train down into the NEC. It's almost like not leaving the airport. Very convenient, very easy to go to. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch up with you next week. Bye bye.